What's up, creeps, and welcome to a brand new episode. Brain stew, bitches. We're back. Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit lively tonight.
Coming in hot a little bit.
Okay,
huh?
That's how I
Get
feel.
Fired up, huh?
That's
yeah,
how I feel.
yeah.
Right?
All right, here we go.
It's that fucking orange cream ghost energy drink, bitch.
Juice getting juice.
Ghost with the most.
Hi.
Hi. All right.
How's it going, guys?
Right. Well, I guess you lost that energy, huh? There it went.
I'm
crashed.
feeling lots of synergy in the room right here, right now, and I'd like to take this moment to tell you guys are my brethren, and there isn't anything I wouldn't do. I'd go to hell and back for y'all, because like that's just the type of connection that I feel like we make when we discuss these kind of things. If you're picking up what I'm putting down,
You kind of sound like John Goodman from Roseanne. That's what I got from that.
He
Like before he died.
sounds more like the Babe John Goodman. Okay.
All right. You sound more like "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," John Goodman.
Listen, Brady, I know it's way before your time and shit, but
All right.
you don't even have any right to be judging anything Roseanne related, okay?
Brady doesn't even know anything about the Muppet Babies.
Okay. Yes, I do. I saw Muppets Take Manhattan. There were Muppet Babies.
Not
in
the
that.
same shit, Brady.
It's the same shit. They're babies. They're Muppets. What's fucking different about it?
Okay, I saw Muppet Babies on Ice, motherfucker. Did you see that shit?
Damn,
No, because my parents didn't love me. Apparently,
Apparently they did not.
dude. I
You
mean,
know what I saw SpongeBob SquarePants.
Brady was raised Mennonite, so he saw like Hezekiah on ice or some shit like that.
I saw the Book of Mormon on us.
Is that one movie that you were allowed to watch growing up was Witness with Harrison Ford?
No, because they show tits in it,
Oh, that's right.
so we couldn't watch it. I was like, "Can I watch this?" And my dad was like, "No, they show nudity in that." And I said, "Yeah, but it's Harrison Ford. It's Indiana Jones."
But like, I've already seen your balls a million times, bro.
Yeah, Dad, come on, man. They can't be any bigger than your balls.
Dad, can I watch The Land Before Time? I'm not actually your dad, and no, because there's dinosaurs in it, and there's no such thing as dinosaurs. We
There's
believe
no
in Jesus
such
Christ.
thing.
No, we believed in dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing. I grew up and my mom was like, they were just large cows.
Holy shit.
What?
Yeah.
They
Refused
okay, at
would
least it
not
wasn't that
take me
weird.
to see Jurassic Park in the theaters. So I had to like basically beg another family member to take me.
She said that T-Rex is called Bessie, Justin. Down on the range. You can milk that T-Rex anytime you want.
But to our listeners out there tonight, thanks for tuning in. Tonight we're doing another top 5 countdown, and none of it has anything to do with the random bullshit that just came out of our mouths a few minutes there. But Jeremy, this was a subject that you wanted to talk about. This was your idea. So why
Yeah.
don't you tell our listeners what we're going to be doing tonight?
Yeah, we're doing a top 5 favorite zombie film ranking. So,
Zombie.
Zombie. With their tanks and their bombs. Yeah, so the zombie genre is one that I'm
And his dad and his balls.
in his face, what's the taste? Brady's dad's dick, Brady's dad's dick, his dick, his dick, his dick, irk.
Love you, Dad.
Which one?
About 4 out of 6.
So the zombie genre is a genre of horror that, you know, like most subgenres within the genre, like there's ebbs and flows, right? Of when it's hot,
Ebb and flow.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I'm just gonna keep singing.
where when things are hot and when they kind of cool off, and you know, in the early 2000s, you know, thanks to the remake of Dawn of the Dead, it kind of reinvigorated a lot of interest in zombie movies, to where in the 90s it kind of, you know, we had Tom Savini's 1990 Night of the Living Dead remake, but outside of that, I mean, of course there were things here and there, but it kind of died off a little bit, and then early 2000s it came back with a vengeance, and there was tons of zombie content being put out there. Then it started to cool off again, and then we got The Walking Dead, and it became hot as shit again. So every time you feel like I've seen everything that there is to see in the genre. A new film comes out that kind of reinvigorates it and inspires filmmakers to put their spin on it. And I love the genre quite a bit. George Romero is one of my favorite directors of all time, and he created zombies, like the zombies that we know, the flesh-eating ghouls. He and John Russo created them. So I thought, you know what, this is something that we haven't discussed on the show yet, and I know it's a topic that horror fans are super into, so I said, fuck yeah, let's do a top 5 favorite zombie movies. And maybe there will be something that we suggest that you've never watched yet that will inspire you to go and check it out, because there are tons of fantastic zombie movies out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're about to kick that shit off now with you, young man, Mr. B-Rat-tat, Mr. B-Ratty himself, the legend, the icon, the guy that skipped out on 2 different separate shows in Boston tonight to be on this episode. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I could have seen Gavin Rossdale and Bush, and I could have seen Candlebox with their one great song. Yeah, so coming in at number 5 for me is something that I know Loy Sauce will appreciate having on this list, but it is 1998's Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Great pick, man.
This is probably the second zombie movie I can ever remember watching. The first one is Night of the Living Dead, because I think I've told it on the podcast, like my cousins trapped me in a room and made me watch it, and it scared me for life. But this one, man, like I just remember watching it on Cartoon Network when I probably shouldn't have been watching it because my parents didn't want me to watch it. But this one was like the first one where the you find out the monsters are like real.
Finally,
like,
man. Fucking finally.
It's not somebody, with a mask on. You're like, oh, it's just fucking Old Man Smithers. It's like they're fucking real, and they're coming to kill you, and they're going to kill this dog and his Scooby snacks, and they're going to get in that mystery van, and they're just going to massacre everyone. And it's the first time that I remember being like, holy shit, like this is not good for Scooby, So, number 5 for me is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. And I rewatched it maybe 2 years ago just to be like, oh, like nostalgia, like, is it going to hold up? And it still fucking does. Like, it's still really fucking good. Dude, the soundtrack is incredible. Mm-hmm. Third Eye Blind is on there? Mm-hmm. Like, come on.
I mean, not to mention that, doesn't Adrienne Barbeau voice somebody on the cast? I think she does. I think she's the...
yeah, she does.
Yeah.
She does.
Yeah, fuck yeah. You can't...
Mark Hamill, too.
Oh, that's right. So, that's right. You can't beat that, man.
Yeah. So that's my number 5. Coming in strong.
Great pick.
Fucking yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And Adrienne Barbeau was Simone Lenore.
Simone Lenore.
And Mark Hamill was Snakebite Scruggs.
Yep.
So yeah, that's me, guys. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Excellent pick. So
thank you.
My number 5 is one that I feel like some of our listeners will have seen, and I feel like there'll probably be a good handful of listeners that have not seen this movie. My number 5 is The Dead from 2010, written and directed by the Ford brothers. And the plot of the movie is an American mercenary, the sole survivor of a plane crash, has to run the gauntlet across Africa battling with the living dead. So it literally is this American soldier that his plane goes down in Africa during a zombie outbreak. And dude, these zombies are terrifying because it's, they use a lot of like local native people in the movie as the zombies. So, I mean, there is stick skinny African zombies with the white eyes. And I would honestly say that, it's hard to say what a zombie apocalypse would really be like or feel like. But to me, this is the most grounded in reality zombie film that I have ever seen. There's just such a feeling of hopelessness in this movie, and every single time, it seems like our lead character is getting a little ahead, more fucked up shit gets in his way of getting to safety, and you really go on, an emotional journey with this character as he's traveling across Africa trying to survive and just trying to get out to get home to his family. So, have you guys seen this movie?
Is this from 19?
No, it's from 2010.
Then no, I have not.
Dude, I tried to just look it up on IMDb and can't even fucking find it.
Yeah, so there's so funny enough is it did fucking...
Oh, here it is. Here it is. Yeah.
It did really fucking well when it came out. There's a sequel. The sequel takes place in India. I enjoy both of them, but the first one is like, dude, it's phenomenal. Phenomenal, which is why out of a sea of zombie films and content that's out there, that's why it's my number 5, because when you watch it, it's a gut punch. It's like, holy shit, man. It's just, these are the slow-moving George Romero-esque zombies, and they're fucking terrifying, and their numbers is also what's super scary about this film is, like, these African zombies are everywhere, and they're strong in their numbers, despite their slow-moving.
Yeah, the sequel was The Dead 2 India. Yep. Released in 2013.
Both, definitely check out both films, but the first one is just, it's like, well, you know what? I feel like that's the most realistic depiction of what it would be like.
That sounds rad.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
Jeremy always popping in with titles that not only have we not heard or have never seen before, but I'm sure a large majority of our audience has also never heard of or seen before.
Check it out. African zombies. Fucking terrifying.
My number 5. The good news is your dates are here. The bad news is they're dead.
Boom.
Thrill me, motherfucker. I had to throw this on here. I mean, this is not only one of my favorite movies that have zombies in them, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Just screened it last year for my Terror Tuesday program at Alamo Drafthouse. I'm talking about Night of the Creeps from 1986. Directorial debut of Fred Decker. Starring the legendary
good stuff
Tom Atkins. It's a great fun throwback to B movies of the 1950s and 60s. It's got slasher vibe in it. It's got zombies. It's got creepy crawlies. It's just a blast of a fucking movie, and I love it. And, the whole end climax while all these sorority girls are trying to go out on their dates and these zombies are attacking the house. It's just a blast. It's fucking great. So there it is. My number 5 is
excellent pick.
Night of the Creeps. And I got to say, because we initially thought we might be doing a top 10 of these, this genre per se, rather, this wasn't easy. To narrow it down to a top 5. It really wasn't. I thought I had this shit down. I didn't. So
yeah, initially I was like, dude, we got to do a top 10 because it's going to be too difficult just to do.
It's
a
so
top
vast.
5. Yeah. And then right before the show, like an asshole, I was like, we should just keep it a top 5 like we normally do. So blame me for that one.
Well, let's be fair. Somebody was like, we don't have to name names, but somebody said, I get pretty long.
Somebody said.
Somebody.
We'll let the audience figure out who that was.
Yeah, it was me.
It was Jeremy.
I'm very long-winded.
And long-dicked. Am I right? I have not seen his. I've only seen my dad's.
You're
so
starting
number
to freak
4,
me out, buddy.
Number
you
4
haven't even seen your own?
No, it's been years. I just don't like to look. It's in the dark all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Brady. Proceed.
I do one of these where I like put my hand below my chin so I can't like look down. You just spray and pray in the toilet, man, or you sit down. Also, let me ask you guys this, because we're all bros here. Middle of the night, you two are married. I'm divorced, as we all know. You go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. Do you pee standing up, or do you just like pop a squat?
No, I pee standing up.
I don't turn the light on. I don't open my eyes either. I just go ahead and piss, and if it goes on the floor, it goes on the floor. Yeah, I'm that dude. I'm that dude.
I used to be so worried about just like pissing everywhere that I would just like, and I didn't want to turn the light on, so I would just like sit on this toilet. But I would sit like kind of like backwards. So like you're like kind of like resting up on like the back.
So essentially like how AC Slater would sit on chairs in Saved by the Bell is how you would take a piss.
I was the AC Slater of peeing at 3 a.m.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
got it.
Because I have the bladder of an 80-year-old.
Oh, so do I. Actually, so do all 3 of us, bro. Like Justin being the fucking worst. This guy pisses we'll go see a fucking movie in the theater, and he pisses 3 times during the movie.
I will say this though, Jeremy, in the almost 4 months that I've been sober on my current journey, that has changed.
Cheers.
It may have been alcohol related in some
pees
way.
more.
Because when I go to the movies now, and I'll have like a soda or two, or even if I have like a couple of waters or whatever, I definitely don't piss nearly as much.
You're like, now I just piss in my pants to not miss the movie because now I'm sober and I'm enjoying the movie.
I got these things called adult diapers, and they work wonders.
I'm like,
I can sit through a 2-hour movie and pee 5 times.
Depends on how much of the movie I want to miss. I'm fucking pissing right now.
Depends on if the movie's good or not. Depends on if it's The Conjuring 3 or not.
Boom. Very rightly so.
All right, so number 4 for me is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. It's definitely one of my favorite Stephen King adaptations, and it's from 1989. Pet Sematary. Sometimes Dead is Better.
Ooh.
Fucking zombie cat church on the poster
road.
for this movie. It's that damn
That
road.
road there.
That road.
That damn road.
That road. God, it's just so fucking good. And I mean, say what you will about the remake, I enjoyed parts of it, not the overall product, but I mean, this movie is just straight 80s cheese, and I mean, everybody knows the story, but, you know, take them up to the pet cemetery, they come back, they're not the same, so the cat comes back first, then the son, then the wife, and it's just like, I don't know, I feel like there's this sense of dread that follows every Stephen King story that really just shines in this movie. Get it, The Shining. That doesn't always come through in all of his movies, and I just... This movie always creeps me out even as an adult, and watching it in the dark, and especially the first time that Lewis goes to the pet cemetery and you're hearing all the noises, and Judd is like, oh, it's just one of the loons, and you're like, that's not a fucking loon. It's just, I love it too because I've been to Maine now, and like Maine is that fucking creepy. For listeners who have been to Maine, like, you'll understand, like, there's Portland, there's Augusta, and then there's just fucking woods and forest and water, and like, you get lost in that shit. So yeah, Pet Cemetery, number 4 for me.
Oh yeah, I remember it must have been 96. I was at my grandparents' house during the summer. I would go stay with them for a couple weeks at a time, and my dad's parents, my grandpa, would take me to the video store, and he'd be like, you know, you can get whatever you want. And I remember I rented Pet Sematary 2 because I didn't know there was a Pet Sematary 2. And then I rented Scream, like it had just come out on video. So I was like, oh man. And I remember Pet Sematary 2 scared the fucking shit out of me, dude.
I'm just fucking with you,
dude. Clancy Brown's performance in that movie, like he was for
he's
me,
terrifying. He's terrifying.
Oh,
in that
dude,
movie.
for me as a kid, like he scared the fuck out of me to where, like, dude, I remember seeing Scream and it almost being like a palate cleanser because I was fucking scared from Pet Sematary 2.
Zowie, no.
Yeah, dude.
That kid's acting was scary.
Yeah. So my number
sorry,
my number 4 is a movie that I actually just rewatched last night. Not even because of this list, but because I was like, man, I really feel like watching this right now. 28 Days Later is my number 4.
Good old Danny Boyle.
4 weeks after mysterious, incurable virus spreads through the UK, a handful of survivors try to find sanctuary. Dude, this movie is... Man, it's creepy as hell, dude. Like, the way that it's shot is almost like... It almost looks documentary style. A little bit like it, dude, it's got a little bit of fuzziness to it. It is not crystal clear and, like, pristine like a lot of horror films. Like, this just has a really grungy look to it. The color palette that they used to edit the film as well just had this bleak tone of... I'm going to use the word again, hopelessness, for these main characters. But I feel like there's a lot of parallels in this movie to Dawn of the Dead, which is another reason why I probably love this movie so much as well. But, you know, it's just people that kind of band together as a means to survive, that they travel together to survive. They rely on each other to survive, kind of, again, mirroring Dawn of the Dead. And one of my, I don't know why, and I actually had a conversation with my wife about this. I don't know why this is so appealing to me as like a movie watcher, but I love shit like this in movies where, like, the scene where they go to the grocery store and they're just, like, loading up on whatever the fuck they want. I don't know why, but I fucking love that. And it's the same thing in Dawn of the Dead when they go grocery shopping in that store in the mall and they're, like, grabbing whatever the fuck they want and all the wines and all the alcohols and all the food and chocolate and candies. It's just, I'm like, man, I really love this scene. So, because it's like, with these characters, it's during all of this chaos, all of this death, just really fundamentally trying to stay alive. Like, here's this one happy moment where it's like, well, at least, you know, we can grab things that bring us like momentary happiness, you know, amidst, you know, among all of this crazy shit that's going on with these fucking dead people coming back to life. And the acting in 28 Days Later with Cillian Murphy and the whole cast is absolutely fantastic. And once again, mirroring back to Dawn of the Dead. Look at the finale of this movie. Spoiler, if you haven't seen it. It's the humans that are the biggest threat, the biggest enemy. Like, never mind the virus, the rage virus that's spreading, you know, throughout the entire world, but their biggest threat comes to when they find a group of soldiers that they take refuge with that have malevolent intentions with them. And it's like, man, you know, so I love the way that this movie is shot and how everything plays out. I think this is close to being a perfect fucking movie. I love it.
I mean, I can't confirm or deny that it will pop up on my list. But you hit it on the head, man. Like, I feel like this is the one zombie movie that really perfectly captures the hopelessness. Like, I feel like a lot of zombie movies focus on a very isolated setting, like a farmhouse or like a community, but this really showed like how the world is just like fucked.
Yeah, that shot of him standing on the bridge in front of Big Ben and the streets are totally barren it's a terribly frightening image, and it really hits home emotionally.
Can we just talk about, before we move on to Justin's, can we just talk about Cillian Murphy? The first shot of him is literally him laying in a bed, fucking naked, like shriveled dick hanging out. Like, that's the first shot of him. It's like, cool, what's going on? All right, this guy's in a... Oh, there's his fucking limp dick right there.
Good for him, man. Because look at him now.
Good introduction, yeah. Good introduction for him. It's like, oh, that guy, there's that guy's dick.
I think that whole opening, maybe, 10, 15 minutes is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, I really need to revisit it. I think, in some ways, the sequel, which I found extremely lackluster and subpar.
Yep, not good.
Really, I actually like it.
For me, it just didn't work. And it's not the fact that it's a sequel. They could have done something interesting with it, and I'm still totally open to the idea of them doing another one, which they have talked about for a long time.
Danny Boyle says he's got an idea for like 2 more.
Yeah. I just think that, like, at the time, that hurt the image for me of the first movie. But I've always been a huge fan of the first movie. I remember watching it. I bought the fucking DVD and just watched it over and over over and over again. So that's another fantastic pick, man.
Thanks, man.
But moving along for me, number 4, this film is like nothing you've ever seen. From 1992, Dead Alive, a.k.a. Brain Dead. Boom. This was one of the first zombie movies I'd ever seen my entire life, and I'll never forget, and I've talked about this on the show from time and time again, that hanging out with my buddy Nate, my best friend when I was growing up, was such a great thing for me in my movie education, because his dad was super into horror, and he always had everything on VHS, and he had a huge fucking big screen TV and surround sound system. And he was also the coolest motherfucker on the block, and he would literally let you watch whatever it was you wanted. And I remember coming downstairs, we were watching some other, dumb teen bullshit up in my buddy's room. and his dad was sitting there watching Dead Alive. And it was the end scene where it's like the whole house is filled with fucking zombies, and it literally was the goriest, most grotesque thing I had ever seen. It's still one of the most gory, grotesque things I've ever seen. And at the time, I could not wait. I was like, after you're done watching this, can we bring this upstairs? And when I watched it, it really resonated with me, but it didn't hit me until I was older and understood film a little bit more. The comedy aspects of this movie, you know, the ear falling into the fucking soup and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now I watch that and I literally will die laughing on the floor. But at the time, it didn't connect with me that horror and comedy could go hand in hand in the way that it did. I think it's one of Peter Jackson's, still, even after all, like the Lord of the Rings movies and all that, like I really still think it's one of his best movies.
For sure.
And it shows his sensibilities, especially as a horror director, because he really walked that perfect fine line between the grotesque and the hilarious, and he just balanced it perfectly. So I had to include that on this list.
Yeah.
So my number 4.
One,
to plug my buddy Craig's convention that takes place in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, Penis Sylvania, is Creature Feature Weekend. Timothy Baum, the star of Dead Alive, is going to be making a very, very rare appearance at that convention.
I saw that.
So, yeah, I'm definitely getting a Dead Alive poster sign because it's fantastic movie.
Good. Yeah. My number 3. I think I've mentioned it on this podcast before. I feel like we've done a remake episode that this came up on, but for me it's 2010's The Crazies, which is a remake of a
I do remember
film.
you mentioning
Dude,
that
I just watched that one too. I just rewatched it.
Dude, I think it's really fucking good. Like I gotta say, I think it's better than the original. And I love Romero, but I think this movie is top-notch.
I have to say something sacrilegious, being such a Romero fan, is I'm not the biggest fan of his Crazies. Of his film. It's, to me, that one, when you're 20 minutes in and it just keeps bouncing around to different characters and introducing different characters, and then it's not following like any set character that we're, supposed to be getting invested in. It's like, I get that he was trying to convey like this shit was popping off and it was literally crazy, but like 25 minutes in, and it's like, dude, who am I supposed to be focusing on right now? It's just different people talking about this virus, so I'm not the biggest fan of the original The Crazies, and I feel awful saying that, but I'm with you, Brady. I prefer the remake as well.
Yeah, so 2010's Crazies was directed by Breck Eisner, stars Timothy Oliphant, Radha Mitchell, Joe Anderson, Danielle Panabaker, who we all know from the Friday the 13th reboot. It's basically about a fictional Iowa town that becomes afflicted by a biological agent that turns those infected into violent killers. I have gone on this podcast before and said that I love the small town vibe movies. I think this one does a really good job of showing how this small town just descends into chaos. Specifically, there's a scene that you guys will remember too, where they go to a farmhouse and the infected father like has killed his family, and he's like hiding in the house, like waiting for them to inspect it and investigate it. Like, that is just terrifying. And the same thing where Danielle Panabaker's Becca's boyfriend and mother get killed. It's just, God, it's like you get so attached to these characters in so little amount of time that everything matters. And that's how I think they capture that small town vibe so well. So yeah, Crazies 2010 for me. Number 3.
I need to revisit that. I saw it opening night in theaters, and I haven't revisited it since. And I feel like I should have revisited it the last time you mentioned it, but of course, shit happens.
And how the fuck can Timothy Oliphant play a lawman so fucking great? Justified, this, Star Wars. Like, I mean, I love him in anything he's in.
Yeah.
Santa Clara Diet was great. But he just, like, I love him, man. And I want to see him do a lot more.
Yeah.
But he's coming back for Justified. They're redoing it or rebranding it.
Oh, yeah. There it is. Well,
Anyways.
I'm going to jump into my number 3, which is almost a segue because it is a George A. Romero film, Night of the Living Dead.
Oh.
Dude, some people would be surprised it's not number 1 because it's kind of the film that started it all. We'll get to that later, but man, This movie, it's the one. I can't watch it in color. Like, I know that option is available, but
fuck that, man.
Like, dude, I have to watch it in
sacrilegious.
Yeah. And I remember one time I tried watching it in color, and I'm like, this is too much for me. Like, I feel like I can't do this. So it's always the black and white version. Man, it was definitely envelope pushing at its time with a lot of the racial things that were happening in life at that time. And God bless George Romero, dude. He cast an African American male as the lead in his film, and who was in charge, and did a phenomenal job. And he told a very claustrophobic story about people trapped in this farmhouse during an outbreak of a zombie virus. And he's like, again, him and John Russo were the ones that started it. They were like, well, because at that time, zombies were just people that were controlled by someone else with voodoo. He was the one that was like, well, and in the first film, they were referred to more as ghouls. Yeah, as ghouls. And, dude, one of my favorite lines of any zombie film ever was when they were talking to the sheriff, and it was like, well, are they dead? Yeah, they're dead, all right. They're all messed up. I
love that fucking line.
I love that line so much, man, and it delivered excellently. And it's just like, man, I need to start a song like that, like just a metal song, and have it start with that clip or whatever. But it's there's a reason why, the reason it keeps getting remade is because it's public domain. So, like, Brady, you could go out with your cell phone and film a zombie thing and release it and call it Night of the Living Dead. And there's no, there you go. It's not Night of the Living Dad, where your dad's dick fucking flops in your forehead.
Yeah, but it's in black and white. It's fine.
So, there's another reason why this movie still stands the test of time, because it's a great self-contained story with relatable characters. It's epic, man. So George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, number 3 for me.
Dude, that movie has such a sad, depressing ending.
Dude, if you really think about it, pretty much all of Romero's Dead trilogy kind of end on a downbeat, because that's real life, right? Like, shit
that's how it goes.
Mostly doesn't work out the way that you want it to.
Yeah, but just for spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it since 1960.
You're trying to tell me there's someone that has never seen Night of the Living Dead, Brady?
Look, I don't want to ruffle any feathers. I don't want to spoil a movie, a classic for anyone, so that they can say B-Ratty ruined their life.
Well, you already ruined their life by talking shit about Doug Bradley. So.
Yeah, you motherfucker.
Well, Doug Bradley can... I want to ruin this movie for Doug Bradley.
Jesus
I hope
Christ.
Doug Bradley has not seen this and is listening right now, so that I can ruin it. But when Ben comes out of the cellar and you're like, fuck, like they're going to save him. He finally made it. And they fucking shoot him. Like, he doesn't even get killed by the ghouls.
Yeah.
Like, he gets killed by the fucking military.
He makes it
body.
through all of that. And, dude, I'm glad that you brought that up, because another thing that I think about, so when the sheriff, or whoever that guy, the police officer guy is, when he's like, are they dead? Yeah, they're dead. They're all messed up. So when he was talking, he was like, yeah, we found a bunch of, we found a couple of them over by a shed, and they were trying to get inside. They didn't even know if anybody was in there or not. Like, it makes me think, because the way that they just blasted Ben at the end of Night of the Living Dead, it makes you think back to him making that statement. Oh yeah, we found a couple of them earlier trying to get into this shed. There was nobody inside of it, and we took care of them. About 15 of them or whatever it was. And it's like, dude, it's very possible that even in that statement right there, like, that they shot people that were actually still alive and trying to find somewhere to hide. Maybe that's why they were trying to get into the shed, because they were trying to find, refuge during this crazy shit. And they could have just blasted them the same way that they blasted Ben at the end.
Here's the thing, too. I don't know if you guys have watched The Last of Us on HBO yet.
Just started it, man. Just started it. And
yeah, so I won't ruin anything, but I played the game, too, and I mean, if you're on episode 1, like, not just The Last of Us, I think that's just the one that's most prevalent in my mind right now, but in modern days, you know, zombie films, you have usually sensors that can tell if someone's sick, they're infected, right? Like, it kind of like goes off. And you almost always have a scene where some young, inexperienced, fidgety, anxious military guy is ready to just shoot whoever.
Oh, yeah.
No questions asked, because it goes, all right, well, you popped. Like, you're infected, so I'm going to shoot you. So, like,
Yep.
I think it's just the natural progression of that. Like, that's scary. Like, to think in that kind of situation, how many innocent people, quote unquote, collateral would there be?
Bro, I'm
at the expense.
I'm telling you right now that, like, I feel like I have a better understanding than a lot of people on how shit would play out if something like that ever really did happen. Because during the pandemic, when it started in 2020, I was managing a grocery store, and I was a store manager of a grocery store. And dude, I see how
dead people.
I see how common courtesy and disregard for your neighbors and community comes into play immediately, dude. People were coming in and fist fighting over paper towels and toilet paper and fucking cleaning supplies, and, like, you know, people would, you know, there'd be one person who would come in and would literally try to buy everything, and I'm like, you know, hey, well, there's a limit on this because we want to make sure as many people can get this as possible, not just one person. And literally, I had somebody tell me, like, I don't give a fuck about anybody else except for my family. Like, I don't care if you don't have any more of it after me. That's not my fucking concern. I'm trying to take care of my family. So, like, the shit that you're talking about, Brady, about, like, these people that are just like, I don't give a fuck, like, just fucking shoot them. It's like, dude, that's how it would literally be if something popped off like this.
Yeah.
100%.
That's for sure.
100%. Yeah. Just like, and again, going back to the Romero shit, and in Romero's zombie films, the zombies were never the main threat of the movies, which is why they were brilliant and why they worked. We are the real monsters because we'll kill each other. It doesn't fucking matter. The zombies.
Back to Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Justin, what's your number 3?
Oh, man, we just got done talking about it. But, yeah, this may be sacrilegious to some, but, yeah, it's Night of the Living Dead from 1968. And here I thought I was going to shock people by having it at number 3. But, you know, it is the granddaddy of all zombie movies. And without this movie, there would not be a zombie genre. I mean, you have George to thank for all of it. Really, literally all 100%. Of it. 100%. It is one of his best movies. Do I think it's his best zombie movie? No. But I do think it's one of the most powerful in what it's saying. And I think a lot of the, in terms of politics, a lot of the underlining themes, if you will, based on what he has said over the years prior to his passing, God rest his soul, was not intentional. I mean,
he's a liar.
You know, I mean, well, you know, him saying that he cast Dwayne Jones as Ben because he was just the best actor that they could find for the part. I mean, you can shake your head. I mean, I don't think he has any reason to lie, but it's entirely possible that he was trying to be political with his message. But the movie really hit a nerve at the time. The biggest issue with the movie itself is the fact that they didn't have any people surrounding them that had a good business sense, and the amount of money that he and his team lost on the movie. You know, a huge shame. You know, think about prior to his passing, you know, had he been able to keep those rights.
Well, it was a copyright issue.
Yeah.
There was a problem with the copyright, and they fucked
what
up.
Wasn't it like what was listed on the actual screen that there was not a copyright on the title?
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
When they were making the film, it wasn't called Night of the Living Dead. It was called Night of the Anubis or Anubis, right? Or some shit like that. Okay, I have not an original script, but I have a copy of it that's signed by Romero and John Russo, and it was like called The Night of Anubis, I believe, was the original title. So when they did the title change, which obviously Night of the Living Dead is a much better title, there was something fucked up with filing the copyright for the film with that title. And yeah, so it fucked, like, I saw an interview with George where he was like, man, had we retained the rights to Night of the Living Dead, he was like, I wouldn't even be talking to you right now. I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere right now. Like, my life would be very different.
Exactly.
Yeah. Crazy.
But that's it. I mean, we already talked about it in pretty long detail there. So it's Night of the Living Dead at number 3. Right back to you, B-Ratty, for your number 2.
So, number 2 is a movie that I love and cherish. I can pretty much watch it back to back to back to back. As soon as it ends, I can put it right back on. It's 2004's zombie comedy from Edgar Wright, Shaun of the Dead. Fantastic movie. It started the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy of Hot Fuzz and At World's End. Hot Fuzz is another great movie, not zombies. But basically it's about a downtrodden salesman, played by Simon Pegg, Sean, and his friend Ed, played by Nick Frost, that are caught in a zombie apocalypse. And it's just a fucking gut-busting movie that's makes you laugh in every scene, but also like has some pretty terrifying zombies and some very, very gory scenes, especially at like the bar, the Winchester at the end, where like the friends are getting their guts ripped apart. Like it's just fucking bonkers. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel like I have to say a lot about this movie. I just know that my cousins and I, growing up, couldn't watch a lot. And so I don't know how we got our hands on this movie, but I think we stole it from one of my older cousins and we were just watching it. And the part where like the zombies walking towards Sean and Ed, and it's like, and look at the zombie and it's like, I just fucking like, I love that. Like it still follows me to this day, where like if I hear anybody moan, I go so clearly this movie has had a huge influence on my life, and if you guys haven't seen it, you should watch it. I saw it at a movie party at Alamo Drafthouse, Ashburn. That was fucking fantastic. And yeah. So
well, you have George Romero to thank for Shaun of the Dead as well, because Simon Pegg worships at the altar of Romero. Like, and he's always cited Romero as the biggest influence on making that film, and it's dude, he captured a lot of Romero in that film, you know, because the reason that movie is so effective. Spoiler that this movie's not. You know, Shaun of the Dead is not on my list, but the reason that movie is so effective is because doing horror and comedy together is a very difficult balancing act. Either it comes off hokey and trying too hard, or it comes off as a little bit too much horror and the comedy doesn't necessarily land. When you get those two things right and they work effectively, then like, man, it's like a small miracle. And the fact that there is comedy where you can laugh your ass off. There's also great horror, great kills, great death, great gore, while also an emotional core where, like, dude, when Sean is breaking down and crying and, you know, there's a real emotional core there. It's no longer just this one note. Oh, it's like a cheesy horror film that's kind of funny. It's like, no, like, this is like that triple threat, man. It's you laugh, you cry, and you're on the edge of your seat, and it's a small miracle when a filmmaker can pull that off. And I feel like it takes a very masterful filmmaker to pull something like that off. So, you know, all of the kudos to Edgar Wright for that.
Yeah, I know. I was reading about it too. They said that the screenplay was written by Wright and Pegg in over 8 weeks and inspired by Night of the Living Dead, like you said, Dawn of the Dead from '78, as well as Raising Arizona, Back to the Future, Brain Dead, and The Birds. So it's funny to think of like all those movies and still be able to see like bits and pieces of it. It's definitely seen as like one of a post 9/11 type film of like this hysteria. And like just general sense of anxiety, because it came out in 2004, so not very long after. But then Edgar Wright even said that he got influence from his own life, how he missed the 2001 foot and mouth epidemic by simply not having paid attention to the news for what he says is like a fortnight. But he like turned his television on one day and saw cattle being burnt, leaving him like kind of like, what the fuck is going on? And then because of that, he was like, oh, it's like entirely possible that the world could be ending, and these two guys could not know what was going on because they're playing Resident Evil 2. So like, just crazy stuff, man.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's my number 2, Shaun of the Dead. Fucking movie.
Fantastic pick. Will be most definitely showing up on my ladder of my top 10.
So, my number 2 is another film, much like Shaun of the Dead, that has this balancing act of things that if you can pull all of them off congruently with each other, it's just a masterclass of an accomplishment. And I'm talking about Train to Busan, because this movie, dude, I am telling you that this movie, I had given up on the zombie genre. I was like, dude, I've seen everything that there is to see. You know, I've seen Wormwood and all this crazy Australian, like Mad Max, meets zombie genre. And, like, that stuff's great, too. Don't get me wrong. But, like, there was nothing that was captivating me with the zombie genre. And then I kept hearing about Train to Busan, and I was like, all right, I'm going to give this a go. And the comedy is so fucking funny. Comedy is so funny. The action is some of the best action sequences fucking in any horror film, like, ever. And the emotional weight of what these characters go through, and, some of them don't make it out alive. I cried like a fucking baby watching this movie tour. I did not think that watching a zombie movie, it would be possible or capable of
that
me
it could affect you in the way that it did, right?
It affected me in such a big way that, like, I remember I was living in my old house, and I remember I came upstairs after watching it and was like, oh, what'd you just get done watching? And I was like, man, honestly, like, one of the greatest fucking horror films I feel like I've ever fucking seen, man. Ever. And I told her, I was like, dude, this movie, like, I laughed, I cried hard, and was on the edge of my seat, because I feel like with this movie, all bets are off. Like, there's nobody that's necessarily safe in this movie. There's nobody that you're looking at going, nothing's going to happen to them. Like, they're just fucking offing everybody. So it's like, there's true suspense while watching this movie, and it is so fucking good that the idea of them making an American remake just because, well, it's not English speaking. It's Last Train to New York or some shit is what they're calling it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Last Train to New York. I'm telling you right now, Justin, I know you're a big proponent for, like, I'll watch everything and then judge what it is at that point. I'm telling you right now, I don't give a fuck. I have no interest in seeing this. This movie has no business being made, because just because a movie came out, in another country, like, oh, we feel like we need to dumb it down and film another version of it just so people in America will give it a shot. Fuck that.
Dude, just also, and at the same time, not even just dumb it down, but a movie that is perfectly...
It is perfect.
Perfectly done the way that it is. It's just a matter of them thinking the audiences are too lazy to read.
Dude, it's just like...
Give me a fucking break.
It's just like Let the Right One In, and then all of a sudden they felt the need to be like, oh, it's everybody it has such great acclaim and everybody loves this. Let's make an American version. And they made Let Me In, which is such an inferior version of that story. It's not necessarily a bad movie, but it made me go, why?
It wasn't.
Why did you feel the need to make this? The original was a beautiful original vampire story, and then you felt the need to cast the horror remake queen Chloe Moretz, and she's fantastic. But
I mean, she is, and that was kind of early on in her horror career
for sure. But it's like, dude, man, come on, like it's inferior because the original is perfection. So, Train to Busan, man, it's just putting that over Night of the Living Dead for me. It's like, I don't know how I can do this, but
you're honestly shocking me, man. You're honestly shocking me, dude, because.
It made me feel things that, like I said, I just did not think was possible. And it takes you through a fucking journey with these characters. And at the end, it's heartbreaking, and it's just so wildly original in a genre where most of the times they're not very original. So,
yeah.
I love this movie. Like, I love this movie. And I try to suggest it to everybody, and they're like, oh, well, it's like a foreign film. I'm like, dude, who gives a shit? Fucking.
That's what bugs me the most.
Read the subtitles, man. Like, dude.
Honestly, you don't even. I feel like it's such a visceral experience that you don't even really necessarily have to read. I mean, I still recommend reading dialogue
for sure.
But just watching the characters experiencing, what they're going through. It's so well elaborated through the visual that you don't even necessarily need to read. But another thing about that movie, because it does show up, on my list later on in terms of my honorable mentions, the action aspect of the movie is something I don't think we had seen in a zombie movie before, like to that level.
Yeah.
And it's so well fucking directed in terms of the action that it's a great balance of the horror and the action. It makes it a blast of a movie to watch. And I always recommend it too. And much like you, Jeremy, I think I came to it much later. People have been recommending it to me since fucking 2016 or 2017.
Right.
And I had only recently watched it, I think, a few years ago, and it knocked my fucking socks off. So
yeah,
definitely something that I was telling Brady. We talked a little bit pre-show. He had said, you said, Brady, you hadn't seen it yet, right?
Train to
Busan?
Busan?
Yeah.
No, I've seen that
Oh,
one.
you have seen it. Okay, great.
Yeah.
It's so good, dude.
I think, not to go off on a tangent here, but, Jeremy, to defend what you're saying, too, about, like, foreign films, like, also, yeah, just put the fucking subtitles on, but, like, I think Korean horror, specifically, is fucking intense. Like, I had a boss at Starbucks who, her family was from Korea, and she would always talk about, I think it was, like, A Tale of Two Sisters was the movie.
Yeah.
That she recommended to me, and I had never seen it, and I went and watched it, and I said, holy fuck, like, this is intense, like this is creepy. She's like, yeah, this is like what we grew up with.
It has a really good
none of your movies scare
reputation.
me.
It has for a long time, and it's got its own niche, and it has its fans. So most definitely, anytime someone tells me if it's Korean, I'll always give it a shot.
Oh, hell yeah.
For sure, because it always challenges me.
Yeah,
but fantastic pick,
dude. Great pick.
I might as well hop out of my number 2. Brady, do you want to party?
Oh, I want to party.
I knew it, because it's party time. I'm talking about from 1985, Dan O'Bannon's directorial debut, the legendary, the iconic, the classic, yes, I'm putting it above Night of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead. They're back from the grave and ready to fucking party, motherfucker. This movie, much like another one I talked about earlier on my list, perfectly captures comedy and horror and is what is basically a masterpiece of a movie. And it's still crazy to me to this day that, yes, we know who Dan O'Bannon was. He was a writer. He wrote Alien. He had worked with John Carpenter early on in his career. But this is the first movie he actually directed. And it's crazy to think that the guy had a very short career in directing, and what he was able to create and churn out here is by far one of the best zombie movies of all time, and one of the best horror movies, most definitely of its decade of the 1980s. I mean, it's one of the most quotable. It features a fantastic cast: Clu Gallagher, James Karen, Tom Matthews. It's
good old Tom Matthews.
I mean, dude, it's just got
Thom Matthews.
Thom.
Well, fucking the weirdest spelling of a name I've ever seen before.
No shit.
But,
okay, guys, what if he listens?
He's like, what the fuck?
But I mean, it's got Linnea Quigley in it. Scream Queen, iconic. Tell me somebody that doesn't like this movie, and I will literally drive to their house and slap them. Come on.
Yep.
Come on.
This movie is the definition of fun. And it has some grotesque shit in it. It's got some brutal fucking zombies. And the zombies in this movie were the return of a more visceral, fast-paced, brutal zombie. We hadn't seen zombies like this in a long time leading up to this movie in 1985. We kind of got used to the Romero zombie. And here, O'Bannon was like, fuck it. We're going to be heavily influenced by Romero. And we all know the stories that apparently Romero was offered to be involved and did not want to be.
Dude, he was bitter about that shit.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, and they actually, think about the idea of them using the Return of the Living Dead. They talk about Night of the Living Dead in the movie as a reference that the movie itself exists. So it's self-aware in that way. But it's such a fun core group of characters. I love the fucking soundtrack. It's got death rock and punk rock and shit in it. It literally is the most punk rock zombie movie there is. And it spawned its own number of sequels, which, I mean, depending on who you talk to, have their own merit and value. I like a few of them myself, but that's it for me, number 2, man. This was really hard because I feel like out of every zombie movie there is, this is usually my go-to comfort flick where I could throw it on any day of the week, no matter the time, and I just have a blast with it and makes me feel all giddy and warm inside. That's how fucked up of a guy I am.
It feels weird saying it, but it is such an easy watch.
It is.
It's for like how gory and visceral it is.
It is, but it's so accessible. I mean, it has something for everyone. I always mention when I screen these movies, but we did screen it a few years ago, and I think it was one of the first movies that I was able to show post-COVID. And it was a fucking packed screening, and you could just feel the energy in the theater of the people laughing and cheering and muttering little lines here and there that they remember that are so iconic, and the one-liners and the soundtrack. People just had so much fun with it. It's just a super memorable experience, and I had to have it on this list. It's one of my favorite movies, Return of the Living Dead. Number 2.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Perfect.
So we're here.
Wow.
We're down to it. Are we all going to have the same fucking number 1? I have a feeling me and Jeremy are going to have the same number 1.
I know
we'll
Brady's
see.
not. I know Brady's
It's never me. So a little unconventional here.
When aren't you?
My number 1 is Rob Zombie's The Munsters. I'm just kidding.
They always got just because
Justin's
Rob
face
Zombie
right now was like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
has his name on it, and his last name is Zombie.
It's a zombie movie. It's a zombie movie.
Oh my God.
My number 1 has actually already been mentioned by Jeremy, but it's Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later.
Hell yeah.
This one written by Alex Garland, 2002. I think there's not much that I can say that Jeremy didn't already say that we talked about, but yeah, it's just this awful sense of hopelessness throughout the entire movie that gets you like seeped in the exact environment that these survivors are in, because it's just in England, the UK, but like they're still traveling a long distance, and they come across a lot of stuff. And I think the 2 scenes that always stick out to me are when Jim goes into that church towards the end and calls out hello, and the 2 people just like, shoot up with the stingers. God fucking damn it. John Murphy's score in this scene is just impeccable. Mm-hmm. Like, I have chills now just thinking about that scene. And then also when Brendan Gleeson, you find out that he's infected through the blood droplet, and you just feel for him, because like him and his daughter in that movie, that relationship
that they were all that they had was each other.
Yeah.
And his death was like, it was something that I forgot to touch on when we were talking about it. He was like, Hannah, I love you, dear. I love you. And she's like, Dad? And she starts walking. He's like, stay away from me, because he knows that he's infected. And it's like her having to watch him within. That was another cool concept that was, created in 28 Days Later, is that you've got about 20 seconds before the virus hits your bloodstream and you're gone. And you're fully taken over by the rage virus, and like her having to watch her dad not only become a zombie, but then like be executed right in front of her. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, that whole scene there, you're expecting to find out that somebody got bit or that somebody was attacked, and that's not what happens. And that kind of threw me through a loop too, where I was like, holy shit, like this guy is going to be infected and potentially kill all these people when like nothing quote unquote really bad happened to him. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. I think that when I recommend a zombie movie to anybody, obviously, George A. Romero is in the discussion for me. And I always say, Night of the Living Dead scared me as a kid. You got to start there. But if I want someone to really enjoy the zombie genre, I recommend 28 Days Later. And I feel like a lot of people, there is a little bit of age difference between us So I feel like a lot of people in my generation specifically flock to this movie too, more than they might flock to Romero. And maybe that's just what it is for me. But number 1, 28 Days Later.
Very nice.
Good pick.
Let's bring the Borat voice back. Make that popular again.
Let's not. How about, let's not say we did.
Let's not say we did and not do it at all.
Of course, my number 1 is George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
It is much like how John Carpenter's Halloween is to me. Dawn of the Dead is like soul food to me. I listen to the score while I drive around. I've read the novel version of this movie, the novelization version. I love everything about this movie. I love the characters so much. Dawn of the Dead is a movie that every single time I watch it, it's almost like I'm rooting that it's going to be different this time, right? Like every single time that Roger gets bit, and when they're moving the trucks around, I'm like, no, this is going to be the time that he doesn't get bit, and
that has to be all the time too,
dude. Every time I watch it, I'm on the edge of my seat, like no, because another great thing that Romero does, in this movie is that just like the scene where Roger does get bit, there's several times where it almost happens, right, in that same scene until it finally really does happen. So it's like every single time I'm watching this movie, I know it's coming, and I'm like, no. I'm like the fucking John Bernthal fucking little clip. He's like, no, wait. So that's me watching this, and then like every single time when the Marauders show up at the end of the movie and they're fucking fucking everything up, because again, like I said earlier, it's always the humans that are the real monsters, that are the real threats in these stories. So they show up and they start fucking things up, and Steven is already starting to lose his mind a little bit, and he's like, no, the mall, we took it, it's ours. So he starts like fighting back with them, and he ends up getting shot, and like, had he kept his cool and followed what Peter had told him to do, then he wouldn't have been shot, and he wouldn't have been stuck in that elevator and not able to crawl out into the shafts. And because of him kind of losing his mind, he gets fucked up, he gets bitten, he gets turned into a zombie, and that's always a really heartbreaking scene as well. But like, especially, man, with Roger, he's like, Peter, and he's like, I'm here, brother. And it's like there's the scene where he's starting to slip and he's starting to slowly become a zombie, and it's heartbreaking. He's like, we whipped him, didn't we? Which I like, dude. I always liked the way that he like coined his expressions. He was like, we got this thing by the ass. Like, there's so many quotable things in this that I'm like, man, I love this movie. But it's like, again, with Steven at the end with Flyboy, I'm like, oh no, this is going to be the time that he makes it out with them. And of course that's never the case. But man, I love everything about this movie. It is even the imperfections, man. Like there's shots that it's like where Peter swings and he's supposed to be punching zombies. They should have used a different camera angle, but they didn't. So you can see that he doesn't actually connect with his punches, yet the zombies are still like, oh,
stumbling around and backwards and shit.
Yeah, and it's like, well, they should have probably gone with a different camera angle. Well, guess what? They probably didn't get that coverage, and they were like, fuck it, it's gonna have to work. Even the imperfections like that, I'm like, dude, it's perfect, man. Fun fact is Romero initially was gonna have it to where Peter committed suicide, and you could see where that was gonna happen in the script, and then he ends up changing his mind and joining her. But originally, apparently, Peter was going to commit suicide, and I think they even had a version of the script where Fran didn't even make it out. And it was like, come on, like, you just went through hell with these characters. Someone has to make it out.
I've always really liked the ending that we got in the theatrical cut.
It's fantastic, and my favorite version of this movie actually is the Dario Argento cut of the film. They take out some of the humor that does exist in George's version. They change up the score a little bit, and there's a lot of deleted scenes from the theatrical cut that Argento puts back in. It's definitely an even more bleak version of that story, which I super dig. And again, like, they could come out with a 4-hour cut of this movie, and I would be right there for it. So this movie is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. So I've got the zombie tattooed on my arm from the poster. Of course, this was going to be my number one. It was always going to be my number one.
Lock and
It was
step.
always you.
Lock and step with you, man. I mean, good pick and everything, Brady. But I just don't.
All right.
I just don't think. I mean,
Good pick for a novice.
I didn't say that. You did. I really just don't see any other zombie movie quite comparing to Dawn of the Dead. I just don't, and that's just my viewpoint on the matter. I mean, the movie is brilliance, and even with those imperfections that Jeremy mentioned, that adds to the charm of the movie. You know, it came out in 1978. It looks and feels like a movie that came out in 1978, but it's also a great time capsule in the mall culture at the time and where we were as a society. And then, of course, you know, that was Romero's shtick, man. He loved to play with the conventions of what was going on in society at the time. Who are we as human beings? Who are we as consumers? How are we affecting humanity in general by these actions? And the movie itself has a lot to say about that. Mm-hmm. Also, Tom motherfucking Savini's effects. I mean, dude, it's weird when you watch it now. A few years ago, you know, and I'd always said that I would never spend more than $70 on one movie. Well, I lied, because Second Sight Films put out Dawn of the Dead as an import on 4K Ultra HD, and I spent I think $130 just for the one movie, for the different cuts of the movie, the Argento cut and the theatrical cut, but none of the special features, because they're all, you know, a foreign release per se. But this is that one movie. I'm like, I have to have this. I absolutely have to have this. And the U.S. rights are all jumbled to shit. Jeremy, I'm sure you know the story in terms of, you know, I've been told by numerous people, don't hold your breath. You might as well just buy this shit. But yeah, this is. I mean, if Night's the granddaddy, I mean, this is the son. You know, and one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Came out the same year as John Carpenter's Halloween, and
which is crazy, man. That two of my favorite films of all time, same year, man.
I'm sure you've watched the interviews, Jeremy. There are a few with both Romero and Carpenter being interviewed for both of their respective movies, and their interviews I watch all the time just because they're so fun to watch. But yep, there it is. That's my number one, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
So we've gone through our top 5. We might as well go around the horn here. I'll start with you, Brady, with what your latter 5 would be for a top 10 for your honorable mentions.
Well, 6 was Dawn of the Dead. So it was definitely there for me. Like I said, I really flocked to 28 Days Later.
Dude, you don't have to justify it. Fuck Justin. You don't have to Justinify it.
Justify. And then after that, number 7 would be another horror comedy, Zombieland, which came out when I was a teenager, and I really fucking loved. Zombieland 2 is not good, but
never seen the sequel.
It's okay.
The first Zombieland is
they just waited entirely too long to do a sequel.
Yeah. What was it, like 7 years between?
They even tried a failed TV show as well.
Yeah, that's true. After that, number 8 would be Will Smith's I Am Legend, which I saw in theaters. And that scene where the zombie is like on the table and like launches up at Will Smith gets me even to this day. And I remember watching it with my dad. He was fully clothed. I knew you were going to ask. But I knew that part was coming, and he was like kind of falling asleep in the chair watching it. And like I turned the volume up and it happened, and he like jumped out of his fucking chair. Number 8 is the Dawn of the Dead remake from 2004 by Zack Snyder. Again, fantastic movie. Really love how that shot in like that 2004 like filter, I guess you could call it. Number 9, Night of the Living Dead, 1968. It will always be on my list because it terrifies me. And then number 10 is a Cronenberg film by the name of Shivers. You guys have both seen
I've
Shivers,
never seen
I'm sure,
Shivers,
right?
man.
Oh, really? I actually hear a lot of people don't like it and don't think it's a very good movie. I go back and forth with it. I think it's effective for me. It's kind of like the 70s version of the same concept as It Follows, where it's like this STD that's just like ravaging this apartment complex. And that I think is really good.
Very sexual.
Yes, but it's also like peak Cronenberg, where like the last 10 minutes of the film, you're like, I don't know if I should be watching this, but I'm way too far into it now, and I feel kind of sick to my stomach, but I only have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to keep watching it. Which I guess is, what he was going for and what you want out of a zombie movie. So, yeah, those are my top 10s. And I mean, I don't have to talk about a lot of them because we already talked about them. And like I said, I Am Legend I know a lot of people didn't like the movie and didn't like that it deviated from the book, which I get. There are a lot of valid points to that. I still think it's a good movie, and I think it has an effective message and effective jump scares in it that work well.
Aren't they making a sequel to that shit?
I thought they were.
Yeah, I thought they just announced, and there was some like big name that got attached to it. It was dude, it was some big name that was like, I Am Legend 2 with Will Smith and blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, that's wild.
Not that dog, that's for sure.
Yeah. Nice. Dude.
Last information about a sequel was back in November.
Who was the name that they attached to it?
2022?
Let me see.
Yeah. Was it Michael B. Jordan? I want to say I thought it was Michael B. Jordan and Will Smith, dude.
I'd watch that.
I can't find any information about who the cast was going to be.
Yeah, there was some name that was. Anyways, so my
Oh, you're right. It was Michael B. Jordan. He made a pitch about it. Yeah.
There we go.
Will Smith reportedly turned down various pitches, and it said that Kiva Goldsmith was attached to write it. They had some ideas. Who knows if it actually is happening or not?
Yeah. There's been a lot of like A-list attempts at capitalizing on the zombie genre that have failed very badly, like World War Z with Brad Pitt. Like, dude, so bad.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways, so the rest of my list would go as following. 6 is a movie called Dance of the Dead. Dude, if you like Return of the Living Dead, you have to watch.
It's like The Breakfast Club meets
Yes.
Night of the Living Dead.
Yes, it's fucking phenomenal. It came out in the mid 2000s, and it's a horror comedy, but it's done really well. Like, dude, there's a whole sequence where like our main characters are running and they're running past a graveyard, and zombies are literally bursting out of the ground and hitting the ground, literally running like they were shot out of a cannon. And it's visually amazing. The special effects are amazing. The comedy works so well. The action works so well. I remember I was so hot on it when it came out. It was like, man, 2009 maybe. I don't remember the year. Yeah. But I remember I was so like, dude, I wrote an email to the movie studio and thanked them for releasing it. Like, I was like, thank you. Like, it's not very often a horror movie gets released for horror fans, and this is it. So Dance of the Dead would have been number 6. Number 7 would have been Night of the Creeps, Fred Decker classic. I love that movie. Number 8 would have been Return of the Living Dead. Fantastic, mesh of horror and comedy and 80s goodness and fantastic practical makeup and effects. Number 9,
nudity.
Yeah, nudity.
Can't forget that.
Number 9 would have been Wreck. Again, another movie that did so well overseas that they were like, we need an American version. We're gonna call it Quarantine. It's called yeah. Fast forward that a couple years, and it's called We All Lived Through a Quarantine, motherfuckers. And like Quarantine. Quarantine, like, it wasn't an awful remake by any means, but it's like, dude, again, why are you fucking with perfection just to cater to American viewers? Watch Wreck. It's great. Like, dude, I love all of the Wreck movies. I think that they're fantastic. And number 10 is another foreign film, Dead Snow. Nazi zombies, which also does a very good job of meshing the horror and the comedy together. But those Nazi zombies are scary as fuck, dude. So that would have been my top 10.
It's a good top 10.
Very, very good.
I taught you well.
Yeah.
Well, my number 6 popping in is a movie that no one mentioned, and it's Fulci's Zombie, a.k.a. Zombie 2 from 1979.
Yeah, I fucked up. That should have been on my list. But
I was waiting for it, dude. I was waiting the entire time
dude,
for it.
I fucked up. Yeah, you're absolutely... Dude, I spaced on that one. It wouldn't have been in my top 5, but it would have been in my top 10.
You know, I thought about it just because it's such a different kind of zombie movie that I really, at first, wanted to approach the list and try to have... rather than just have what I have, which is, a lot of 80s stuff in there, but, you got to do what you got to do. Number 7, already mentioned from Brady's list, Shaun of the Dead. It just literally one of my favorite movies ever. It's got to be on the list.
Copycat. All right.
I saw it before you because I was born before you and would have had access to it before you.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
It came out in 2004. You didn't see it when it came out.
Okay, I was 9. I could have seen it.
I know you couldn't have seen it because you were at home looking at your dad's dick and balls every night.
Maybe Shaun of the Dead was in the background. You don't know everything, Justin.
Okay, all right. I listen to what you say. I listen to what you say.
I was looking between his legs. It was okay.
You don't know that?
Yeah.
Number 8 would be Reanimator from 1985.
Oof.
Number
Fucked
9,
up again.
Train to Busan.
Jeremy's like, we got to record.
Hey, just push stop on recording. We're gonna redo this right now.
Also another one that I was surprised didn't show up on your list. But yeah, Train to Busan at number 9. I had to throw that on there. Definitely resonated with me the same way that it did with Jeremy. And number 10 for me would be the Dawn of the Dead remake from 2004. I've always been a fan of Zack Snyder. This was his directorial debut and also a screenplay by James Gunn. There's a couple other movies I just wanted to mention quick, like Planet Terror, Bride of Reanimator, Zombieland, and a little fun zombie horror / musical came out from a few years ago, and on the Apocalypse.
I've never seen that, and I need to check that out.
It's a lot of fun, man. And the songs are, for what the budget is, the songs are pretty decent, and, the cast is good. It's not like the most super uber gory thing I've ever seen, but I found it charming. I thought it was really good for what it was.
Hell yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our top 5 zombie movies. Let us know in the comment on this post what your favorite zombie movies are. I'm pretty sure you're probably going to side with me and Jeremy on the number 1 and tell Brady he's wrong again, which would be the correct answer. No, I love you, Brady.
Wow,
Seriously.
okay.
No, there's you know what?
You don't know that.
You know what?
You don't know that.
You know what I do fucking know? I do fucking know. All right?
You don't know that.
I do know. I know that. I don't know this. But ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you're hearing, if you're listening to the show for the first time, thank you. We are on every single podcast app that there is, and leave us a review. You can head over to iTunes or Spotify.
Tell your mother hello for me, all right?
Yeah. Just leave us a nice review there, and follow us on social media. We're literally on every platform at Epic Film Guys, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the whole shebang. But thanks again for listening to the show, and look forward to future episodes. As always, I'm Justin.
I'm Jeremy.
I'm B-Ratty.
Jesus Christ.
What the fuck was that?
Hey, buddy, what do you got, a dead cat in there or something?
You don't know that.
Always, we like to ask you to keep it creepy.
Shuragagagag.